Hey you all, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to the No-Till Market Garden Podcast, episode 34, season 2. Something that has been on my mind is the sort of crossover between landscaping and no-till agriculture. There are a lot of mulches involved in landscaping, a lot of interplanting and perennials. And indeed, there is at least one awesome market garden out there who exemplifies this sort of crossover. Sunset Market Gardens in North Carolina. David Williams and his wife, Nake, came to market gardening after a career in landscaping, and the parallels are super interesting. So we talk about that, about no-till, about their farm store that is run pretty significantly by their children. Also, we have tacked on a few minutes after the conversation, towards the end, where we talk about how they have adapted to coronavirus. And it's a great episode all the way through, and I could not bring it to you without the help of our show sponsors like Farmers Web.
Farmers Web software makes it easier for your farm to manage working with your buyers. By lessening the administrative load and increasing efficiency, Farmers Web helps you save time, reduce errors, and work with more buyers overall. Our free account includes features to manage your real-time and coming soon product availability, and tools to create your own availability calendar to inform buyers on the seasonality of your products. The free account also includes access to the Farmers Web Guide to Working with Wholesale Buyers, which offers pro tips and best practices on how to work with restaurants, schools, and other similar buyers. A 1-month free trial is available of the paid account, which includes features to manage your customers and orders, give select buyers special pricing and payment terms, track your buyers' payments, send invoices, keep detailed sales records, and much more. You can even manage orders for buyers who don't place them online. Access a demo video and learn more at farmersweb.com.
Also supporting the show today, BCS America.
BCS two-wheeled tractors are often referred to as the best tiller on earth, which makes sense given that the rear-tine tiller is our most popular attachment. Recently, a growing number of folks have begun to see till as a dirty word. No-till and low-till methods certainly have their benefits, but the BCS tiller attachment has a new trick up its sleeve for growers that are concerned with inverting soil layers or over-pulverizing their soil. The Precision Depth Roller accessory, or PDR, is now available for 30-inch BCS tillers, and a 26-inch version will be available in early 2020. The PDR gives BCS owners precise control over the depth at which they engage their soil, from half an inch up to 7 inches deep in half-inch increments. Perfect for mixing in soil amendments while chopping up any leftover plant residues. And the PDR's expanded mesh roller gently levels the soil, leaving behind a perfect seedbed. The PDR is on sale now. Check out bcsamerica.com for sale pricing and to find your nearest dealer.
All right, big thanks to our show sponsors and enough from me. Let's get into this awesome conversation with David Williams of Sunset Market Gardens. David Williams, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jesse. It's great to be on.
And it's great to have you. First, let's start with the rundown. Where is Sunset Market Gardens? How much land are you working with there and those sorts of things?
Yeah, so we're located just north of Greensboro in a community, city called Reidsville, North Carolina. We are on 13 acres. Right now we have a little over a third of an acre in cultivation, and we utilize high tunnels for season extension. Our farm is pretty much based around being early and late with crops with a summer break. So we grow in 3 30 by 96 high tunnels, and we have 3 the Farmer Friends Caterpillar tunnels that are 100 foot. And then we also have outdoor plots also. We are certified organic by the USDA. And we try to adhere to the no-till practices. We've done some tillage in the beginning and could kind of see that wasn't going to be sustainable long term. So that was in the fields. We've always been no-till in the greenhouses, but pretty much everything is no-till now. So we use a tilter, and that's pretty much the only tillage that we use. And we're at farmers market. We We sell to farmers market in Greensboro, which is really nice. It's an indoor market year round, which really fits our niche so that we can be there in a warm, dry environment, December, January, February, March. And we also have a farm store, a market on our farm.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, that may be something that we'll have to get into. You said that you had 330 by 96 tunnels. Are all those heated?
So we have two that are heated, and actually one of them is a 35 by 100, which actually gives us one extra bed. So instead of 8 beds, we have 9 in that one, which is really nice. But we have two of them that are heated. The two that are heated are totally automated, so they're really nice. They have roll-up sides that are automated. We have ventilation that's automated. They're screened, so the roll-up sides come up and we're still screened. But they are totally automated, and it's really nice. We built the first one, which was the 35 by 100, and we learned very quickly that it was even though it was nice, there's still a lot of maintenance because everything was manual. You had to manually roll up the sides, manually open the doors, which I guess a lot of farmers probably know about. And we found, okay, the two that we put up after that it was worth the investment to go ahead and do that. And we want to retrofit my old one, the first one we put up, the 35 by 100, to also be automated. We see a huge benefit. The caterpillars are enough work of their own, so, but yeah, so they are heated, and we utilize those to do minimal heat through the winter. We have found that we can grow like arugula, radishes, turnips, bok choy. Those things really, really benefit from having just minimal heat. We set it at 35, 36 degrees, and just from avoiding that freezing and thawing, and the crops love it and perform really well. And then I guess late January, we crank up the heat, and we've planted tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, new potatoes. We've done all those crops. I guess it was like February 10th. We do beets. And then we intercrop with radishes, turnips, some leafy greens with the tomatoes. But yeah, so we try to utilize the heat to be very early. We hope to have tomatoes the 1st of May. And we'll have cucumbers and squash, zucchini, new potatoes in April, probably by the middle of April. And really helps us to get an early start at the farmers markets. We small farm, so for us, we tried to find a niche to where we can make sales with as little competition as possible early, having summer items early, and then carrying winter items all through the winter with a lot of production. So that's kind of how we utilize the high tunnels.
Yeah, that's great. So maybe a couple technical questions about those high tunnels. You said they're heated. What are they heated with? Is it propane?
Yeah, so we use propane. We've actually played around with both companies. We use Resner and we use the Modine. Trying to just see if we think one is better than the other, and we really can't tell much difference in efficiency. But yeah, so they're both heated by propane, which we're playing with the expense of that. And I guess every winter seems to be a little different as far as sun, heat, warmth. And right now we're dealing with a lot of gray days. Seems to me this year we've had at least 3 rain days a week or more, which really puts a hamper on the high tunnel. So as long as we can have sun, it works great. But on cloudy days, it's not as effective. But still, everything's growing and moving along nicely. So yeah. Sunlight's a bit. Have you looked into supplemental lighting at all? We have, and it's just more expensive. I think this is our 4th season, growing season, and it's been a whirlwind, as most farmers would know. Starting a farm, we've built a lot of infrastructure on the farm, and we're trying to watch the expenditures that we put in as far as what we can get back out of it. And we just haven't seen that the lights would be beneficial versus the cost for our area. Being in the Piedmont of North Carolina, we are typically pretty mild winters. And we just don't know, because this year could be an anomaly, as far as moving forward. But no, we haven't looked into that. I know the expense factor is probably something that we pause and take a moment to think about.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you definitely have to do that when you're talking about input additions like light and heat and those sorts of things. What was your? I think about these like tunnels, and I'm wondering what was your sort of resource guide for building these tunnels and deciding about putting in the automation and the heat and all of those things. Like, what resources were you using to kind of guide you in making those decisions?
So in the beginning, I'm an analytical type person, so everything has to make sense to me, and there has to be a plan. And we actually hired a farm consultant in the beginning when we were looking for a piece of property, and his name was Tony Cleese. He's big in our area. He helped write the USDA regulations for organic, certified organic. He started a co-op here. It was called Eco. I think they changed the name. I think Josh has done an interview with the lady. He it's East Carolina Organics. They're a distribution hub. So he was big in the organic movement, and he was a consultant to help farmers find land, come up with plans for the farm, and he really pushed this off-season growing to be different from most farms, to push season extension and high tunnels, and to try to just differentiate yourself, do the opposite of what most other farmers are doing, because it's hard enough, especially a new farm, to sell your vegetables, and especially at a market. But he was the one that helped us come up with the business plan, the model that we use. And I remember point blank, he gave me the winter harvest from Elliot Coleman, and that was like a total game changer for us. Once I read that book and saw the pictures, it really it hit home with me, because my horticulture background, the pictures in there were just beautiful, and to me it was like any fine gardening book or a magazine that I looked at. So reading that book, set us in motion. And then from there, we referenced the online course with Connor Creekmore. It's been a huge help for us. When we signed up is when it first started. So we built our greenhouses before the greenhouse things were released on the website. So we basically studied pictures from Connor's greenhouses. We would flip through and study and study and study, and we pretty much built our greenhouse, our new 2 high tunnels, based upon his specs and what he's done at his farm, because we thought, hey, this looks awesome. The way he has exclusion at the bottom for voles, mice, to the netting, to the control we use is Advancing Alternatives. We have their controller, their motors for the curtains. So those are, some of the resources we've used just to get going. The course has been awesome. We also love Ray Tyler's lettuce course. It's been a wonderful help to us, growing lettuce here in the South. So, but no, so the high tunnels is basically, just copying what Connor done.
Yeah, that's great. So it's cool because you're actually like getting some of these consultations and doing that course before you start their farm. I feel like myself, our farm, and so many others, we kind of think about all these things much later, like much after the fact.
Yeah.
And I think that's great.
We were already farming, before we got Connor's class. And like I say, we'd already built one high tunnel, and we were building the others. And like I said, when we first started on the course, he was releasing the information kind of in phases as he was videoing and doing all that. I think now it's great. Someone could sign up, and all that stuff is available from the beginning, as soon as you sign up. But those are great resources. And I firmly have been one in our journey to refer to someone. I think it's money well spent if you can get someone who has knowledge to help you along the way. I mean, it's helped save us money and things where we didn't know. Like typical farmers, you learn as you go, and a lot of times it either costs you time or money. So I think those are great steps for a farmer to take, especially starting out.
Yeah, I think that's cool. That's something it just didn't cross my mind, I think, until many, many years later, to kind of pursue any sort of consultation. And I think it's a great resource that we definitely have now that we didn't have 10 or 12 years ago so much. But that's cool. I love to hear a sort of success story on that. I'd like to hear a little bit about your horticultural background. What were you doing before you got into farming?
So I've been in the horticulture industry since 1991. Out of high school, attending a local community college, needed a job, and went to work for a local landscape company. And it was a need of money, really. It was just crazy how everything worked. And then after time working there, I actually enjoyed being outside. I enjoyed planting. We did like upper end residential installation landscaping, and learned a lot. And on that job, I think for 8.5 years, became one of the company's top foremen for installing like large scale residential landscapes, and started my own business in 1998. That was the great thing about the industry, is I could start my business with low capital input. You know, it's amazing. I think we invested $10,000, and then my first year we grossed over 300,000. And then I parallel that to farming. Our land and our infrastructure, we probably have, not take away my house, $250,000 invested or more. And first year farming, we made 15,000. So it's just like
Right.
It's just like the opposite, But since 1998, we started our business. Our business has kind of changed models. I guess around 2004, 2005, we stopped doing so much installation, and we've kind of taken on a role as personal gardening. We maintain really nice, formal estates here in Greensboro, North Carolina, and we only have 12 customers, but they have really nice English-style gardens, really formal estates, and it seems like we've been robbing Peter to pay Paul for the farm. So, which is great, because most farmers get into farming, and I think that's what my consultant had mentioned to us. He's like, you're in a great position because you're not desperate to have a salary off the farm immediately, which is really going to help you and hopefully help the success of the farm. And we're starting our 4th year, and I haven't taken an official paycheck yet from the farm, which has been great for us. So we use the adage of just reinvest the money, and as long as you don't take a paycheck, you don't have to pay taxes. We don't pay taxes on continual improvements, infrastructure, and whatnot. So the horticultural industry is paying for the farm at the moment. And, and my background in horticulture is really seen in our farm. We've spent money beautifying, landscaping. I think that's the biggest comment we have when people come to our farm store. We're open 2 days a week, and people come, is that how beautiful everything is, how neat everything is. And we really want that. We want a place that's as beautiful as it is productive, and because it has to be for me. Otherwise, I'm not interested. If it's not going to be, look nice and be beautiful, then I'm going to lose interest. And plus, too, I think it's really good for our customers. I think they really, really enjoy coming and seeing how neat and clean everything is and how beautiful everything is. And it's easy sell after that, right? They come and they see that. They're like, most of the time the adage is, I'll buy vegetables from this place. This place is nice. It's clean. And yeah, so you could see that as soon as you step on our property. You can see the background, the detail, um, and we're just capable. We're very blessed to be able to do that with our property. So.
In terms of that landscaping background, do you feel like beyond just the beautification element of it, do you feel like there's a lot of sort of crossover between the landscaping world and the no-till world? And I say that because sometimes when I'm driving around town and I see a really well landscaped property, I think, oh, that looks like a no-till farm. Like it's heavily mulched. It doesn't have a lot of weeds. Maybe there's some perennials in there. Can you kind of talk about how that sort of informs your farming beyond just the beautification?
Yeah, so it relates. I can't say this, that horticulture and growing certified organic vegetables is like night and day. Um, my horticulture background, chemicals definitely, it's, I think more and more we're trending towards organics in horticulture. There's so many fungicides, pesticides, insecticides that are used. So it's totally different. And in that aspect, that's one of my favorite things still today, is the bed prep. I love forking. I love pulling the string. I love the tilter. I love creating beds. I really enjoy the planting. Um, some of my not so favorite is the harvest. I'm not a big fan of the harvest, even though, most farmers are like, well, this is payday. This is what you do all that other work for, But so yeah, they're related in a lot of ways. The composting, the bed amendments, and that was what made our landscape so successful, is that we really spent a lot of the budget for the landscape job in the bed prep. I always told customers, I was like, you could take a really grade B or grade C plant and put it in top-notch soil, and you're going to have a great product eventually, But you could do the opposite. You could take a beautiful, well-manicured plant and stick it in horrible soil, and you're going to see it degrade. You're going to see it go downhill. And yeah, so there's a lot of parallels in that aspect, but there's a lot of differences too. I've said many times, growing certified organic, high-quality vegetables is like, it's one of the hardest things I've ever tried to do in my life. It's one of the toughest tasks. Growing is one thing and selling is another, but those two, and trying to be profitable at it, But yeah, there's a lot of parallels. You're right. The mulching, keeping the bed covered. Yeah, it's just the tools are a little different and the inputs are different.
Do you think there's anything in landscaping that that you don't see people talking about in the market gardening world, but you think is super helpful for you? I mean, is there anything that like landscapers use? Any tricks that you think are?
The bed prep is one thing, because it's highly important in the landscape, and it's very highly important in our market garden. The diversity of plants, I think, is great. In the landscape, you have a diversity because it's aesthetically pleasing, not more so in the market garden because of the benefit of it for the soil. But those two play hand in hand in both worlds. We have seen a huge benefit on our farm with diversity. We have pollinators all around. We have a lot of different trees, species of plants, perennials, and then just intercropping. We're learning more about intercropping, and it looks awesome. I mean, you intercrop with tomatoes. So it's as beautiful on the horticulture side as it is on the market garden side, but they just have different meanings for each. But for me, the biggest crossover, I think, is, just the bed prep, because the soil is the key to both. And I remember taking or looking at maintenance jobs or maintaining a property and actually turning a couple down just because of the way they were installed. Because the installers already gotten paid and gotten their money and left, and they've left the homeowner in a situation where they're going to be struggling for years to come because the soil was so poorly prepped or was not prepped. And it just makes it really hard because you're coming in after the fact and you're going to catch the blame. Why isn't it performing? And it's hard to really go back and blame someone else, while you're doing the work. It doesn't look good. But bed prep is the key, in both worlds. So I would say that's the one thing that translates, I believe, the most.
So what does that look like in the horticultural world? When you're doing like a landscaping situation, are you going and doing a soil test and then adding all of your amendments and then working in organic matter? Like, what is that? Is it sort of the same approach?
Yeah, so our approach would be the existing soil. We're here in North Carolina. We have a lot of red clay, which is great. It was a misconception with my customers. They would, oh, that red clay it's the worst, and I'm like, no, it's great. It's got all the minerals. It's got everything that the plant needs. It just needs additions to it. So most of the time we would use the existing red clay, and we would add what's considered topsoil here in our area, which would be mostly like a sandy river bottom kind of soil. And we would add that to the red clay, trying to like lighten it. And then we would add organic matter. And what we used mostly was considered a pine bark soil conditioner, which would be a really fine aged, pine bark, which just translates straight to market gardening, so that's what we would amend. We would fill all that in. The pine bark would get organic matter. It would keep it aerated and loose. And that's pretty much what we would do. So we'd bring in those items and until as deep as we could, rip it up as much as we could. And then we would always add, lime and, a nice slow release fertilizer. But yeah, so that would be kind of the same scenario, that you would want to go through with your market garden. We add peat to our soil to change the tilt, kind of like the sand would. We already have a nice sandy loam. And then we're adding the organic matter constantly, so, but that's kind of how we approached soil on a landscape project, and it's not so different, amending a bed for our farm.
And when you set up your garden to begin with, did you add that pine bark mulch as a soil conditioner as well?
No, we didn't. We're certified organic, and we really have to watch the inputs that we bring in. So we basically have just used compost, and we have found a huge, huge benefit from the peat moss. The peat moss has really changed the texture of our soil. I know Connor talks a lot about the chemistry and the physics, and the chemistry is pretty easy. The physics is what takes a little bit more time, and but yeah, so we've just really added a lot of compost, and we've been using the peat moss, and the combination of those two have really, over 3 years, we've seen a huge difference. The last 2 years in the greenhouses, we saw a big difference, but this being our 4th year, we really are seeing major strides outdoors, just from even last spring. Last spring, we struggled a little bit with broad forking outside, and this year, it just sinks down and it's a dream, so it's just amazing what continual applications have done for our farm.
Hey, you all, quick interruption from me to get a word from a couple more show sponsors like Tilth Soil. Tilth Soil makes living potting soils approved for use in organic systems from food scrap compost in Cleveland, Ohio. Tilth Soil is committed to making outstanding growing media to help regenerative and organic farmers be as successful as possible. Their blends are suitable for seed starting and germination, transplant production, and indoor specialty crops. Learn more about their products at www.tilthsoil.com. Our show is also brought to you by you. Definitely you. You can support our work through patreon.com/farmerjesse or through Venmo to @NoTillGrowers. Just kicking us a couple bucks and saying thank you is huge to us. It is what keeps the show. It is what keeps the show going, and at a certain level on the Patreon page, or if you just want to bump up from one level to another, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs this week to Be Grateful Farm, Garrett Collier, Tony Lopez, JM Fortier. Big thank you to everyone who supports the show at patreon.com/farmerjesse. All right, back to David. Talk a little bit about taking the summer off. What does that look like? Are you stopping your production in like May or April, May, June, that period, and taking July and August off and then getting back to it? What does that sort of look like?
Yeah, so for us, we pushed through to the end of July, and our last farmers market in Greensboro is that last Saturday of July, and then we just stopped selling there. And for us, it's about trying to have a break during the year, and like I say, we want to be different from the typical farm. The typical farm takes a break in the winter, and so we do the opposite. And it's funny because my customers at the market always will ask me when we return. We always return late September and start selling in late September. And they always ask me, did you enjoy your break, right? Did you enjoy your time off? And our typical August last year was work, work, work. I think I worked 7 days a week, almost until we went back selling vegetables, So, and it's kind of crazy because, that's your time to accomplish the task that a lot of farms do in the winter. That's your downtime. I got all these projects that need to be done, and we're still a growing farm and still adding and building things. And, but yeah, so we grow from late September until late July. We use August because in our climate, we're second week of August, we're planting, so we're planting brassicas, which is just crazy and still 90-degree heat, but that's what we have to do, So we start planting second week of August, middle of August, and we plant every week, and we plant, and get geared up, and then we start selling at the market late September. And then we sell all through the winter. We take a small break at Christmas, and maybe a day off for Thanksgiving. But yeah, so we try to have high production, and then what we try to do is just continue for it to ramp. So when we go back to the market in late September, there's still a lot of competition in our market. A lot of the farmers are still just kicking in gear, and they're growing a lot of the same things that we can provide, and there's not much advantage there. So we try to watch our production so that we have enough to sell and kind of, get back into flow of people buying from us. And then we just continue to try to make sure we allow space and to continue that ramp up so that December, we're like hitting our stride, as a lot of outdoor farmers start to leave around Thanksgiving and into December. And then the key is January, February, March. And those are the hardest, to have continual production. And we've done really well the last couple of years. And this year, our farm is just growing leaps and bounds. And so we're hitting a little bit of a lull right now, which is kind of good and bad. It's good to sell everything you've grown. But we're also playing around this year. We're trying to take an approach to have summer very early. We want to have summer and spring. So we've kind of forfeited a little bit of sales now to make sure that we can get that rolling. And we're just playing to see what is the best, what is the most profitable. Like I say, we'll have tomatoes in early May, and trellising tomatoes, working in that greenhouse, we kind of go until the prices plummet and the competition is just really through the roof. And that's when we say enough's enough. And that's typically for us that end of July, because the amount of work that goes into trellising and pruning at that time of year, and if the prices are not going to be conducive, and it's not easy being in that hot house, that's when we just say enough, we stop. And last summer, we actually kept selling on our farm. We're open 2 days a week, and we continued to sell here as we were removing crops. We started having a little less and a little less, but we have grown lettuce for we've had lettuce for sale for 78 weeks now in a row.
Wow. That's great.
We've made it a point to do that. And we have a lot of people who really enjoy our greens. Our greens are like the biggest, I think it's probably 55% of our total sales or more. salad greens. We do a pre-washed, dried, ready-to-eat salad greens. And so we have customers that came all through that time, that August, September period, to the farm to purchase our eggs, purchase our salad greens, and we have other items. But yeah, so during the summer, we actually kept our farm store open as we quit going to the downtown market, Greensboro, because we had such a high demand for our salad greens. So we kept the market open, and we grew salad and greens all through the summer, even through August and September. Just try to meet that demand. Plus, our own family consumption, we're so spoiled by what we grow. We don't want to go to the store. The greens just aren't the same, So yeah, basically that's our season though, Jess. We go from late September until late July. That's our season. We take off. Well, we don't go to market August and September, and we're hoping this year will be a little easier on us. We don't have quite as many projects that need attention, so there's good and bad to all that. A break in August is not the best time for vacation for my family. September's not quite as bad, so we're still trying to play with that, and I do believe growing in August is probably the hardest. You could say probably February, March, and August are probably the worst for farmers. And August is just really just horrible with all the heat that we have here in central North Carolina. So yeah, that's our season. That's what we try to stick to.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's so much potential in growing in the winter because still, I mean, most farmers are growing throughout the growing season and then stopping over the winter. Like you said, that's when most of us take our breaks. But there's still an enormous customer base there hoping to get some food. One thing that you kind of mentioned, which I think is interesting because I've kind of run into this a little bit too with our farm, is kind of balancing. This happens both in the fall and right now, balancing your product that you have ready to sell with the product that needs to go in. Right now that's, we want to start getting in radishes and stuff for the spring. We still have lettuce in the house. In the summer, it's like we still have our tomatoes, but we need to get our lettuce in. What are you all thinking, like in terms of mitigating that issue in the future? Are you going to build more houses, or what does that look like, you think?
Yeah, so that's definitely a rub. We're working on that this spring, and that's been something that we're dealing with now because we've had really, really great consistent production all the way through the winter until actually this week. We will start to see a decline, and it's because we've kind of foregone, those old tired brassicas coming out of the winter. Let's rip those out, let's get them replaced, and so there's that fine line. You take something out to try to put something in for the future. It's really a difficult call, and when you have something it is producing still, but yet it's not producing as well as it was, or so it's a really fine line. We're dealing with that now, and we're just taking the adage that at the market we sell at, strawberry season is king. When mid-April, strawberries come in, it's like all the tourists, we call them tourists, just flood the market there, and they stay. They come for the strawberries, and they stay through tomato season, and they're just there. They want the summer produce. There's this thought process in the typical customer's mind that farmers markets are for the summer. And we're very fortunate that our farmers market does a wonderful job promoting it year round, and we have a great loyal customer base. It's amazing. You can pretty much put the face of that person to the clock on the time is every Saturday when they show up. There's these loyal people, and they have their set times, and they really carry us through the winter months. But the market explodes in April. So we're thinking, how much can we have available for that peak time? And maybe if we forego some sales in March, to have April, May, June be, magnificent for us. And for us, that's going to be having zucchini and squash and cucumbers and possibly new potatoes when those people start to show up looking for those strawberries. Because that's what people think of. They think of summer produce when they think of farmers markets. Typically, they're coming for the strawberries, the tomatoes, the squash, the zucchini, the cucumbers, the peppers. So that's kind of our plan for this year, and we're going to see how that works. Try to forego a little sales in March to have a really bumper, April, May, June. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, so I want to hear a little bit about how you operate that farm store. This is something I've had growing interest in myself, but I know it's just this other thing that this other marketing option that growers could pursue. So talk a little bit about what your farm store looks like and then how it's managed.
Yeah, so just to back up, when we first were looking at farming and talking to different people, and there's two avenues that most farmers go. The one avenue is we don't have a lot of budget and we're trying to go and pay as we go, which might mean in the beginning you don't have all the equipment you need, the things necessary to make life easy or the morale, keep it high, or just to be very productive. And what we've done is I don't know, maybe the opposite of what a lot of farms would do. We built the infrastructure first, and we were capable of that. So we built a brand new building. It's 30 by 30. It's conditioned. It's got spray foam insulation, the walls, the ceiling, the roof deck. It's a really nice concrete floor building. We put our wash pack in there, and that's what it was basically going to be. We have a 10 by 16 walk-in cool-bot refrigeration room that's got 6-inch walls that are totally filled with spray foam. And that's what that was going to be. And then we had so much interest in our farm. Our farm is located on a busy road going in from a small community into Greensboro. So it's a lot of commuters that drive past, and they see that we're doing. They see all that's happening. It's pretty cool. They can ride by and see what we're growing. So we had all this interest. So we're like, well, why not have a farm store? And the market that we sell at in town does not allow us to sell our eggs there. So that was like a huge thing. We'd have pasture-raised eggs. And so we started the market in that same space, and we had room in there. So we designated one area and built some really nice rustic-looking wooden shelves to kind of have an old-school look. And we have constructed these 4x8 movable tables that have stainless steel tops on them that we can move around and configure how we want. And we just set up farmer style. We use one of those 4x8 tables. We have two if we need. We just throw a tablecloth over and set up baskets. We have a 2-door glass case refrigeration, which we bought brand new. It's really nice, and it's kind of sandwiched with our cabinetry shelves on either side. So we sell our produce, our eggs. We sell local pasture-raised meats. We have local dairy, raw dairy. We have butter, cheeses, honey, syrup, local coffee, nut butters, jams. So we have a nice wide variety. We have a young lady who makes natural leavened sourdough bread. We sell on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And then it's managed by my sons, which is just great. They're learning so much. So my oldest son, he was 14 when we started. He's 15 now. We've been doing it for a little over a year. So it's pretty amazing. He's 15 and he has, Saturdays where he's selling, $1,000 worth of vegetables by himself, setting up, selling. And it's a great experience. The customers love it. So he's here by himself on Saturdays. My wife is still busy with two I've got a 7-month-old and a 2-year-old, so she's pretty busy with that. But she's at home if he needs her. But so he sets it up in the morning. He does it all by himself, and the customers love it. You know, he's homeschooled. He's extremely polite. They just love the fact that they're getting to come to this farm and the beauty of the farm and this young man, you know, selling them vegetables, taking their money and running the store. They're blown away by it. And then on Wednesdays, both of my sons, I have a 13-year-old, they both run the store. They bag all the greens, they set everything up, and I check in on them on Wednesdays because I'm here. Saturday mornings, me and my younger son go to the market downtown. But so they're managing it and setting it up, running, collecting the money. And this year, I'm really wanting to hand over the ordering for all the grocery items that are in there to Logan. I want him to start dealing with the vendors that we purchase from and start doing that on his own. You know, for us, homeschooling, there's more education than can be taught from a book as far as what our kids need to be productive citizens. You know, and them running that farm store and working on the farm is teaching them so many valuable lessons. And like I say, the clientele love it. They just are blown away by it.
Yeah, I love that for so many reasons. One, you know, we've talked a little bit about this on the podcast this year, but just involving the kids, like the farm has so many opportunities for education. You know, our little boy has his own little egg business, which we pretty much, you know, help him with every day. But he's able to, you know, have to gain that responsibility of harvesting and feeding them and, you know, moving the coop or whatever it happens to be. So it's, I think those things are so valuable, and you can just kind of start adding things on, like you said, like have your older son start taking over the ordering and maybe doing more with the money and et cetera, et cetera. That's super cool. Can I ask you a little bit about like the sort of future, what the next few years of your farm look like? Like what are some of the big things that you kind of have in mind to sort of start or continue to integrate?
Yeah, so we haven't touched any, as far as restaurants go, sales. We haven't even approached a single restaurant yet. I guess the way I've kind of looked at the first 3 years was I've never farmed before. We've always had vegetable garden in our backyard at our old house. I've never really farmed. I never had any experience in farming other than self-education and actually paying people as a resource. So we started the first 3 years. I'm like, okay, let's just grow and learn and try to become very good at what we do and work on marketing, have a nice product, and present it in a way that's the way we want for our farm. So there's that option. We wanted to say, okay, well, we got production where we kind of know what we can produce, what we're good at, and we'd like to touch into a few restaurants this year. I guess the main thing for us is we're small, so we're just a little over a third of an acre. We can grow. We want to get very good at that third of an acre. I mean, what is the max that we can do? And I don't think we've hit it yet. So for us, if we could sell all of our product retail, and I consider the farmer's market like retail, my store is retail, it's direct to the customer, to the consumer. So we're looking at avenues of that as far as we're talking now with a really prominent preschool in Greensboro that has wealthy families that pay for their kids to go to this really nice preschool, and there's 74 families and 22 teachers that are very interested in us bringing the product to the school. We have set up an online shopping platform on our website where people can pick and choose, pay for it online and come to our farm on Saturdays and pick it up. We kind of open it on Monday mornings and then we close it on Wednesday evenings, and then gives us Thursday and Friday to kind of fulfill the orders, and everything's paid for. So it'd be a great opportunity for this school to use that platform, and then we would deliver to them on Thursday afternoons. But it would be a great way to have a direct relationship. We love the CSA model. I just know the CSA puts a lot of pressure on the farm to grow a wide variety to keep the members satisfied, and we're just not 100% sure that are ready to take that on. And for us, I know it's always that sell, right? To try to convince someone to give you the money up front for so many weeks in advance. And there's a lot of trust there. People, I think, need to know your product, or I think it would be great. So the online is a great platform that we think that Mike could get us to a CSA. The farmers market's great. I just don't know long term. You know, it's been great revenue for us. It's got our name on the map. But it's just every Saturday. And for me being a father and having a family, it's just every Saturday. And that every Saturday, it just starts to wear on you. And I guess it'd be nice if you had employees that could do the market for you and you take a break, but I just don't have that luxury. So for our farm, we just decided as much retail direct sales that we could have the best for our farm. So we're kind of small. We don't know that wholesale is a niche for us. So we have found that with our store, we're 20 minutes from Greensboro, which is the third largest city in our state. That we really built the farm store hoping that we could get people from Greensboro to come to the farm store, and that's been a little bit of a success, but not really what we envisioned. And with people's busy work schedules, there's a lot of people that would be interested in our produce, but they don't go to the farmers market. And to drive to our farm store is not something that would be a routine for them. And so we're really looking at, is it possible that we can take the product to them? And this preschool is a step in that direction to see if that is the future. And like I was saying, the farmers market's great. It's just a lot of time consumption. We love the CSA model, grow it and it's sold. It's all sold and delivered through the week. And then if you choose to work on Saturday, you work at your farm on your site, and just not have that demand for the pay. The payday is Saturday, so if you miss a market, you lose your payday. So we're looking at different avenues to have direct sales to the customer, and maybe delivery is one, the online is another, and they kind of tie hand in hand. And we're hoping with the online is a way for people not to be committed to a CSA, but they can start to buy our products and grow that relationship and know and trust what we sell, to where hopefully those customers in time will be enough that we can move to a CSA. But so that's what we see the future is how do we connect with that customer one-on-one and sell as much of our product retail as possible.
Yeah, so it sounds a little bit like you're more limited in terms of your future and future growth by a market than you are necessarily by producing food. In other words, it seems like you feel like you can produce more food, but you just have to find more outlets to sell it. Would that be kind of accurate?
Yeah, and that's kind of been the case up till this point. So we've been really focusing on infrastructure at the farm and growing, learning processes and systems. And we feel that now we're in a really good groove with that. So now we're looking to pursue more options. So as of now, we sell everything we grow. So I don't see that as an option or a problem moving forward. I think for us, we're probably going to be maxed out in space. But there again, I want to spend a year or so to make sure that our systems are really tight and we're really efficient. And what is the max that we can do on a third of an acre? So I think we're we're over $100,000, in sales on a third of an acre, which in the grand scheme of things is pretty good, But so we've gone from 15 our first year to over 100 for this past season, and we don't think that we maxed that out yet. So we want to get to a place where we feel like we've got what we have totally under control and feel very confident, and then we might decide to add another high tunnel. But yeah, so I see the future is pretty bright. For us, it's always that trying to make it economically viable, So you have the infrastructure, and we have a 5 and 10 year plan, and our 5th year, then hopefully I can take to payroll, pay myself, and then on the 10th year we'll have everything paid for, hopefully including our house, and which will make life much easier, So, but yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. But
I'm hoping maybe we can kind of end on a more technical, nerdy note. I want to hear a sort of general description of your bed prep and management. We kind of did a little bit of an overview. You said you use the tilter. Can you kind of give us an idea of what that looks like in practice?
Yeah, so it all depends on the crop, Jesse. So, we do a lot of greens. Our salad, we've seen a lot of farmers do different ways to remove the crop, and we're still playing with that. Right now, we remove everything. There's a lot of roots and whatnot that is left in the soil. I know farms who actually prune and cut off, and that's something we might look at doing this spring. So if it's a salad crop, so we remove everything. We shake off as much as we can. We string every time. So we have all of our beds permanently marked and staked. We string off. We like to add our amendments, like soil, whatever soil, like compost. We're using compost. We typically put out, it's about 3 wheelbarrows per 100 foot in between. And we're using a plant-based compost. Then we will broad fork, and we allow the broad fork to get some of that amendment to fall down in. We look and see, okay, do we need to add peat moss at that time to continue our getting our tilth the way we want it? If the soil is good, we leave it alone. It's getting pretty good everywhere. We're not adding as much peat moss as we were. So yeah, so we string, we remove, we'll fork after we put our compost down, and then we add our fertilizer. We're doing a mix. We make a mix here on our farm that has a feather meal, an alfalfa meal, a catfish meal, a kelp, and a potassium. We have noticed that you can get your NPK pretty much easily from most of your fertilizers, but that potassium is something that we have found vegetables love, and so we add that, and then we spread that, and then we tilth, and then we rake, and it's amazing. Our soil is getting so good that we don't use the rake much anymore. Gotten pretty good with the tilther. We can just make a few passes and then make a pass down the middle to get that little hump out, and we're pretty good. We use the gritter. We love that gritter to get our spacing right. We even use the gritter for seeding with the jang to mark out 4 or 3 or whatever we're doing. And then say if we're doing a salad crop like arugula, to us arugula is very easy to get rid of. We use a stirrup hoe to kind of pull it, and then we rake it up, remove as much of the green debris as possible, and do the same. If it is brassicas, we try to remove everything. And that's just what we've done, and I'm not saying that's the best way, but it's what we've done up to this date, and we're going to play around with leaving more root mass in the soil. But yeah, that's pretty much how we handle a bed flip is we always string. We always try to keep everything perfectly neat and clean. And but yeah, remove the crop, broad fork, add our amendments, and then tilth. we're using a bed compactor. We started growing with the 4-row. We kind of switched over to the Jang. We like the Jang. It seems to be quicker and easier. So we don't use the roller much anymore, which just basically helped us take away a step. We like to till that compost in. We've found that it really works well. In the greenhouse, I don't think it's necessary, but we continue to do the same as we do outdoors. But outdoors, we have little gentle slopes on most of our beds for drainage purposes, and our heavy rains, we could sometimes lose some compost. So we decide just to till it in, and we mix, like an inch or more just to get that compost mixed in. And we also found by adding the compost and then broad forking is really nice because every time you crack it open, it falls down in. So, but yeah, that's typical bed prep for us.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that addition about, two things that I really liked about that is using the gritter for seeding, which we do as well. We'll run that 4-row, and then we'll decide if we need 7 rows of something, we can use the middle of those spaces or whatever. But then also adding compost before you broad fork. I think that maybe some growers don't consider that, but that's always like the reason that we're broad forking is to kind of permanently break up that compaction, permanently open up that soil. So it's nice when you have something like compost that can kind of squeeze in there and hold it apart.
Yeah, so we found that to be really helpful, because to do it in that manner, no-till, it's a slow process, right? I mean, it takes a while to get that organic matter deeply into the soil, and any opportunity we have, and that broad forking is a great opportunity because every time you open, it just leaches and falls down in there. We take advantage. When we first started our farm, we tilled. We grew cover crops for a whole year before we ever started selling. So each one of our plots, even where our greenhouses are now, were growing plots. And yeah, so we tilled in the beginning.
Hey, the audio dips out here for a second. What he says is that they added about 800 pounds of composted cow manure, 5 bags of peat moss, and then tilled it again before going, just to get it prepped to be no-till. All right, sorry, back to David.
You don't want to, but bite the bullet and go ahead and get that really tilled as deep as possible. And then, start your no-till. But yeah, so any opportunity we get to get that amendment deeper into the soil, we try to take advantage of. And I think the broad forking after you put your compost is great.
Well, David Williams, thank you so much for this time. This has been a great conversation.
Well, thank you, Jesse. It's been a wonderful opportunity for our farm to be on your podcast. We love it. We listen every week.
All right, if you enjoyed that episode, make sure to stick around after the credits for the pandemic follow-up. David's going to share some of what they've kind of seen, and then I'm also going to kind of talk about what we've seen and how we've adapted. So stay tuned for that. Also follow David and Nake on Instagram and Facebook and all the places, Sunset Market Gardens. Links will be in the show notes. You can also check out the videos we've done with David over at No Till Growers YouTube channel, and Josh Satin, who does his own channel. He's also the one that shot those videos. So check all of that out. Also, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're getting it. If it is not coming through your regular podcast app, let me know, and we will try to fix it without unnecessary tillage or sprays, of course. Also, leave a review of this podcast. But this week, all reviews must include a tomato sandwich and some chips. I probably shouldn't write these when I'm hungry. Big thank you, as always, to Jackson Roulette and Josh Satin for their help with No-Till Growers. Huge thank you to my wife, Hannah, who is the most amazing human, and I could not do this without her. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye. Cool. Well, I was thinking if you just have a few minutes to kind of give us a run, because we did our interview right before the coronavirus, so I thought maybe if you were up for it, you could just give us kind of a little update on what has changed and kind of how you've adapted.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot has changed and a lot hasn't. So for us, sales have been through the roof. So as far as selling our vegetables. So there's never been a greater demand for our vegetables than now. And we're very fortunate, I guess, to be ahead of the curve. So last fall, we started our online shopping last fall. So we already had it set up. We had some people partaking, using it every week, but nothing like now. So we already had a platform. We already had it set up. So it was great. We already have a store. So it's not like our farm wasn't already catering to customers. We have a really nice big parking lot. So when our market shut down, very quickly we were able to just steer people to the online. And that's just really, each week has gotten more and more orders, to the point now where we put it on, I guess, around 10 o'clock Monday morning. And I mean, I think this past week we had 50 orders in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, so it's really going crazy. But as far as protocol, I mean, us packing, wearing gloves, social distancing, spacing, people come to our market. We basically let one person in at a time into our store, and we have an employee who touches everything, grabs everything for them. My son, I got one son that just takes money and one son who weighs and helps people bag up. So the protocols changed on our end as far as handling food and dealing with the customers, and had a huge influx of people coming to our farm who are customers at our local farmers market. So I think the protocol has changed. How people are purchasing our product has changed in the fact that we got a lot more people doing it online than before. So that's really the big change we've seen, Jesse. So
have you been able to meet the demand?
No.
Yeah.
We sell out every week, which for us as a farm is a great thing, right? We wish, and I try to tell people the aspect of farming is that you just can't change production overnight. It's something that would, like when this happened, that was the second week in March, the third week in March. So I think the 13th, the 14th, I think was the Saturday. That was the last Saturday in the city. So we have an indoor market. And the city of Greensboro, which is the city we sell in, kicked the farmers market outdoors. So we sold in the parking lot that weekend. And then the next weekend, it was shut down. So, but since then, I try to tell people it's hard to quickly bump up your production and just change things around. And because we were already set in what we considered, as our normal sales. We've been keeping records for 3 years. This is what we could sell at the farmers market. And I guess we were very fortunate. We're very early as a farm, so we have a lot of variety, a lot of produce that we were going to have early, I think, which really helped us, right? So if you were a person and you had to drive somewhere or go somewhere to pick up produce, you'd kind of want to go to a farm that's, I would think, got a lot of variety, especially at that time in March, which is really difficult for a lot of farms, So I felt that was another thing that really helped us. It was going to help us at the market regardless, but so we're at that point now. We're like, okay, do we go ahead and up production and start trying to do a lot more things? We're limited in space anyway. Or is this thing going to turn around? And when it does, do people go back to normal? But we've seen this huge, trying to turn back to local, trying to buy, fresh local food from a farmer. We see this, I'm sure you're seeing it too, this movement that people have. And maybe it's fear from the grocery store or what, but it's a good thing. I hope it lasts when, things do go back to normal, if they do. So it's curious to us is if this demand will stay the same. We kind of liken it to lettuce coming out of California, It's like rolling dice if you buy that lettuce, especially like romaine. but people forget, and next thing you know, they're buying it and eating it, and they forget about the last case of people dying from eating the lettuce. But so yeah, we're real curious what'll happen if and when things go back to normal. So
Are you going to change anything about what you're producing? Like,
so for us at the farmers market, it's really nice. We try to have a variety. We've noticed at the market, like the things that people want are lettuce and carrots, some radishes. We do a lot of scallions, but it's things that people can put on a salad. That's what people want. But for us at the market, it's like if you can have a really nice variety, it attracts more people, So we grew peas. We grew a lot of different things that take up space. And but yeah, I mean, we sell mostly just greens and carrots. I mean, everybody wants a carrot. We can't grow enough carrots. I feel like we had a quarter acre just carrots would be money in the bank. But yeah, we tried to have a nice variety because you want your farm stand to attract a lot of people, or maybe it's a one-stop shop, instead of just having 3 or 4 different items. We try to have 10 or 12, So I don't know. I think right now the mix we have is good, and I think it's really helping people want to come here to buy vegetables, because I think this Saturday we have 14 different things people can buy as far as, fresh vegetables, herbs, which is great for this time of year, But yeah, that's always the good catch-22 is what's profitable and what's more profitable, and should we just grow straight lettuce and carrots? But us being a farmer's market, mainly, is our direct marketing to a farmer's market. We try to have variety. So that's a good question. I'm not sure. We have what we have right now. It's hard to rip out a crop that's producing to switch to something else. But it's really made me wonder about going to like a CSA instead of a farmer's market. Is that better? We really enjoy the farmer's market's great. But boy, is it a hassle getting up. I have to get up at 4:30. I get up early anyway, but that's really early. And our market's 5 hours, so it winds up being 8 hours. Where here we're moving the same product, and my market's open 3 hours on Saturday, and it's about 4 hours, 4.5 hours of setting up and breaking down. So we're spending less time, and right now we have a lot more emails in our database, which is great. So a lot of our farmers market customers, we didn't have ways of contacting them, and now we do because they're emails. So what we do is we steer people to our website and sign up for a newsletter, and that's how people go to our stores. We send out a mass email every Monday morning, mid-morning, to allow people to know, hey, these are farm updates and that our online is open. It prompts people that it's open at that point. So really that's what we've been doing. So we got a lot of our good customers, all of our customers' emails, which is really good moving forward if we choose to change how we're marketing our produce, so.
What's that online? I don't know if we talked about this in our interview, but what is the online store that you're using?
So we use Squarespace.
Okay.
And we have, so we basically just go in each week. I've got a young girl who's been helping me for over a year. She helps us with our digital marketing. So she does all of our website, social media, which is great. She's a food blogger. She's a photographer. So she's basically been able over the last year taking pictures of our produce in a beautiful setting. So people see a beautiful picture of our produce and prices. It allows us to add eggs. We have a young lady who makes sourdough bread. We put that on. So I think the pictures are really nice. Anything that's attractive, draws people. So yeah, we use Squarespace, and it seems to be working fine. We're trying to figure out the quickest, efficient ways to bag, and bags are cheaper for us than boxes because right now we don't feel that would we get the boxes back every week? Would people feel safe? So we're using a nice paper bag from Uline. So there is more expense because each we're not getting our egg cartons back like we used to, and the bags, are just, I hope they're recycling them. But yeah, so that's our platform, Squarespace. So what about you guys? I mean, how are y'all? What are you guys doing?
We've kind of gone straight back to a CSA, and
yeah. Why did y'all leave that? So I hear people that did it and now they don't. I mean,
well, we were kind of, what our idea essentially was that we were going to, over the winter, we decided that we wanted to drop our CSA and go full farmer's market, but offer a market card so that it would be more like a sort of choose your own CSA. So we would still get a little bit of that influx in the beginning. But that people would come to the market and they could choose kind of what they wanted when they wanted it. And we would basically set up 2 days a week at the farmer's market, Saturdays and Sundays. And then that would be our entire thing. That was our goal. And so when the coronavirus stuff hit, we backed off of that and decided instead to kind of re-up our CSA that we'd canceled from the year before. And we just sent out an email to all those folks, and most of them signed right back up immediately. And then we only decided to do 10 weeks to start with because we just weren't really sure what was going to happen.
That's right. How long and whatnot, yeah.
So we kind of just, and also we hadn't planted or planned for CSA crops. Like they're kind of two different things.
Yes.
To an extent. I mean, you can still, in the spring, people don't expect to be getting tomatoes necessarily, but in the early spring, but at some point, like they do expect that. So we figured we'd do kind of like a spring CSA, and then if it was still going, we'd launch a full summer 20-week CSA going through the fall. And so that was kind of it. Like we did that, and then the other thing that we're doing our first CSA this week. So this is the first week of it, the official CSA. But then we've been selling like sort of salad bags for $15 at market, and those have been that's been pretty effective. We've been selling out. Last week I sold out by 8:20 and the market opens at 8.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
So we pre-sold this week and we sold out. So it's good, but there's just no way to meet the demand for us. Like we're just not there. We're especially not this time of year. Like we're not going to be able to get to that. And we've also decided not to take on an employee. Which means that we're really restricted on how much we can produce.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's tough. We kind of like, I don't know, we kind of made that decision because we didn't want to, we were just worried about the transmission, not necessarily from an employee to the customer, but maybe from an employee to us. And if Hannah and I even got like, I'm really susceptible to colds for some reason. I had some pneumonia a long time ago, and it really messed up my lungs. And so I'm like really susceptible to sort of lung colds. I go down really hard for a while. And, in the spring, like if I ended up going down for 2 weeks, that would be, like it would be like 2 months in farm terms, with the kids and everything. Yeah. Like it's, so that's where we're at. It's really tough. It's a tough decision, but.
Well, Jesse, I appreciate it.
Yeah, Dave.
Hope everything works out.
Likewise, I hope the same for you all, and I hope it stays busy all summer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too, David.
Bye.